Hey everyone, Shabby Gamer here, and welcome back to some more Shabby Talk. Well, yesterday we did the NXT Takeover Orlando preview, and now I'm going to go through sort of a review, just sort of while it's fresh in my memory, exactly what I thought of the card, and then of course we can have a little discussion about it down in the comments section below. So it started things off with the 8-man tag match. I got perfectly right the order of running yesterday, so I did well there, but yeah, the 8-person tag team match. I watched the pre-show and they sold the injury to No Way Jose. Whether that was an actual injury that kept him out of the match or whether they just wanted to storyline write him out so they could bring Ono onto the card, I think that might have been the case, to be honest with you. I think they would have wanted Ono to be on that card on the WrestleMania weekend, and of course he had no other matches for him, so they might as well do it that way. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was a good high-paced match. Everyone got a really good showing. It was a little bit tricky for the women, of course, because they could only be in the ring against each other, so they didn't get as much time in the ring as some of the men did. But I'm looking forward to seeing some more of Ruby Riott, actually. She looked like a real good sort of wrestler, and I think she's going to be a great addition to the female roster there, especially if the likes of Asuka and so forth move up to the main roster. She could definitely be quite an interesting addition over there. One of my favourite moments of the match really was, I don't know if anyone's, I'm assuming a lot of people have seen Indiana Jones, but there's a bit in Indiana Jones where I think they're in Egypt and the guy comes along with a sword and he's swinging the sword around doing all these really cool sword moves, and then Indy just shoots him. And that was the same sort of thing that happened last night on Takeover when you saw, what was his name, the German guy, I forgot his name now. He come in the ring, Alexander Wolf. He came in the ring and he was doing all this stuff, all these kicks and spins and this, that, and the other, and Cassius only just walked up and gave him a right hand and knocked him to the ground. I thought that was so funny. I was laughing so hard. I was a bit surprised by the result of this match. I really thought that Ty Dillinger would be finally given his moment at TakeOver, but in fairness, it might make sense, because if Ty is about to move up onto the main roster, which is probably very likely, then Sanity getting that victory and continuing to build themselves as a strong dominant force in NXT may actually be the best result. So I'm pretty happy with that. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be result-wise, but thinking about it logically, I think it probably was the correct result, and now we can see Ty finally move up to the main roster probably tomorrow night at the Raw After Mania. Next, we had the Alistair Black versus Andrade Cien Almas match. First of all, they did a fantastic job. You can see they're really invested in Alistair Black. They had a special entrance lined up for him, even if it just was him slowly erecting, whatever that was. He's got some good music. A lot of the music in NXT is quite generic, but you can tell when they really think a lot about somebody, they give them some proper music, and Alistair has got proper song as his entrance music, which is pretty good, and he's even got his own sort of name bar when he comes out, which is pretty cool as well. So they've really gone all out on the production of Alistair Black, so it looks like they are really going to move forward with him, and he's not just going to end up being someone stuck in the mid-card of NXT, just sort of flapping about everywhere. He's actually going to be pushed quite hard. The match itself, I'm a massive fan of this new heel Almas. I think it's so good. I think as a face, he really, really struggled to get over, but now this cocky heel persona is really getting a lot of heat in NXT. I think he's doing fantastically well, and I really like it. The only problem I found with the match, in my opinion, is because it was Black's debut. Of course, Black won, which is exactly what we all expected. However, he sort of took a lot of the brunt of the match. Almas dominated, say, 80% of the match. So it was a bit weird for me. I just thought that Black would dominate quite a chunk of it and get a victory, at least 50-50 the match. But eventually Black did get the victory, which is the main thing. He's going to obviously build upon this, and hopefully in the next set of NXT tapings that will probably be this week, we'll see some pretty cool stuff from him, and we'll see exactly what they've got planned for him moving forward to the next takeover, which will probably be SummerSlam weekend. It was quite funny in the match, actually, because I think a lot of you might have noticed this if you were watching it. Nigel McGuinness, a few occasions, kept calling him Tommy, and towards the end of the match, he even mistakenly said Ring of Honor instead of NXT, so I'm pretty sure he might get a little bit of a bollocking backstage with that one. The next match, of course, was the NXT Tag Team Championship match. It took a few minutes for me to sort of get into this one. I knew it was a good match, but I just expected a lot because of how well DIY and Revival have been in the ring together over the last year or so, and by the end of the match I was completely hooked on it. It was absolutely incredible. Just the fantastic spots that were in the match, such as the superplex that happened. I think it was like Dash Wilder on Tommaso Ciampa superplex to the outside of the ring on top of everyone was fantastic. It was a real good storytelling match. You saw the sort of unholy alliance of DIY and Revival kept coming in and out of the match, in and out of the match, and it was a real good match for Revival. They're obviously the tweeners in this one, DIY being the faces and Authors of Pain being the heels. One of my favourite parts of the match was when DIY... It was Johnny Gargano and Scott Dawson did DIY's finisher maneuver, and then straight after you saw Dash Wilder and Tommaso Ciampa do the Shatter Machine, which I thought was so cool. It really was cool, and the crowd were absolutely loving it, and I was as well. The only downside for me is that Authors of Pain, they just slow the match down quite a lot, and I know that's the way they wrestle and this, that, and the other, but it sort of took away from a real high-paced, really exciting match that all of a sudden just got killed when these two take control. And for me, they've got to be careful because they're booking them very, very strong. Like, for example, one of the lads went through a table, and within 30 seconds he was back in the ring on his feet like nothing had happened. And when all of a sudden you've got a fantastic team like Revival, fantastic team like DIY, and it's 4-on-1 and they can't take that one guy down, you sort of book yourself into a corner, and if they become too strong, a bit like Asuka, you struggle to find anybody who can beat them sort of realistically. And that's one thing they're going to have to be careful of, because if DIY and Revival do move up to the main roster, which I expect to happen, I expect DIY to move to Raw and Revival to SmackDown, then there's not much else in NXT that could really launch a credible challenge to Authors of Pain. I don't know whether they might bring Sanity in, but then Sanity's a heel team, Authors of Pain are a heel team, so I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with the way they've booked Authors of Pain. They've made them look stronger and stronger and stronger every single match, which is not a bad thing, but eventually they are going to have to be beaten, and if they keep booking themselves into a corner, that's going to be very, very difficult to pull off. So the next match, of course, was the Women's Championship match. It was the first time I'd actually watched an Asuka match where I genuinely thought she was going to lose. I thought Ember Moon really stepped up. It's the best match I think I've seen Ember Moon have in WWE so far. But then again, she's not really had a lot of fantastic people to work with. She has some good wrestlers to work with. People that are still working their way up, like Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. They're decent wrestlers. They're still working their way up. They're getting better and better week in, week out. But Ember Moon is at a high quality. And when she actually finally faced Asuka, there was a fantastic storytelling in there. There was great spots as well. And yeah, it was the first time that I really honestly thought that Asuka was going to lose. It's an odd one. I think Asuka's been very much a tweener for quite some time now. Depending on who she's facing, she's been good, she's been bad, this, that, and the other. But last night, I think she may have taken that full-on heel turn with the cheat to win, pushing the referee into the ropes to knock Ember Moon off the ropes, and then finishing her off with that kick to the side of the head. It was very much looked to me like Asuka had gone for a heel turn. I don't know what they're planning now, though, with Asuka. Is she going to keep a hold of the belt up until the next takeover, which will be the SummerSlam weekend, and then potentially lose it to Ember Moon? Because there is rumours that the next NXT Takeover SummerSlam weekend, of course, SummerSlam weekend last year was the draft, so there is rumours that this year's SummerSlam weekend is going to be the draft as well, so maybe Asuka drops the belt at the SummerSlam Takeover and Ember Moon takes it, Asuka moves up to the main roster. Either that, or they do very much what they did with Paige. Asuka moves up to the main roster and has to give up the belt. That's the words I'm looking for. So they could do that, and then they could have a women's championship tournament, which is still very possible. Maybe they could do that as part of the... Because obviously they've announced the women's tournaments, 32 women across all the different countries. Maybe if Asuka did hand over the championship, the winner of that women's tournament could become the new NXT Women's Champion. That's a... Off the top of my head, I didn't even write that down on my script to write. That just off the top of my head, that could actually work really, really well. But yeah, it was a really good match, actually. I was quite impressed with it. And of course, our main event, Bobby Roode versus Nakamura. Of course, two guys who have incredible entrances. And the match for me was a little bit slow to get going. Great storytelling as normal with Bobby Roode and Nakamura. They sold the injuries to each other pretty well. The last few minutes of the match were fantastic. A lot of high octane stuff, a lot of big impact moves. I think this is a good idea though, because I think that Roode keeping the belt, like I said yesterday, Roode keeps the belt, moves on. Nakamura now free to move up to the main roster. However, Nakamura is scheduled for the NXT UK tour. So whether Nakamura will be doing both at the same time, or whether Nakamura will now not be on NXT TV for a while, do the UK tour, and then maybe move up to the main roster at the SummerSlam weekend as well, I think. But I don't know who, honestly, would be able to go up against Roode now moving forward, because you've got to find yourself a good face. Will they go for Cassius Ohno again? Will they go for maybe Roderick Strong? Will they even go straight in for Alistair Black? It's difficult to see with the people that are moving up. It's going to be tricky, I think. I think we'll have to wait until after the Raw, after Mania, to see exactly who's still on NXT and who's moved up. And then from there on, we can sort of start to speculate who's going to be going for that championship at the SummerSlam weekend one. And a few extra little bits and bobs that happened. The new championship belts, don't like them. I really liked the old NXT tag belts. I really liked them. The fact that they would look like they were half and half, which was really cool in my opinion. And I wasn't too disappointed when they said they were going to change the women's championship and the men's championship. I thought that was a good idea maybe, but the fact that the two belts are exactly the same belt, and that annoys me. I don't mind the championship belts themselves, I just don't want them all to be the same, because it comes... I like the idea of having different looking championships, and I don't want the fact that if you put all the belts in front of me, I couldn't tell you which one was which. And that's the sort of thing that annoyed me about last night. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope I had a few too many beers, and I hope there are more differences to the belts than I thought, but that sort of annoyed me. And the other big thing that happened, the massive thing that happened, is that NXT zoomed in to one Drew McIntyre in the front row of the crowd. And it was also announced last night as well that he has re-signed with WWE, and he is going to be working on NXT, not going straight up to the main roster. So that is a big, big signing for NXT, another big name for them, and somebody else who could really continue to develop fantastically well and then move up onto the main roster. So I'm looking forward to seeing Drew McIntyre back in NXT, and maybe he could be someone who will go straight for the championship as well. But there we go, guys. That is my review on NXT Takeover Orlando. If you have any comments, any questions on what I've said, then of course drop in the comment section below. Like I said before, I'm going to be online all day up until WrestleMania, of course, because I'm doing a lot of recording today. So if you do comment on any of these videos, I will get straight back to you. But yeah, I've been Shabby Gamer. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that other good stuff, and I'll see you very, very soon for some more Shabby Talk.